Ken Gray, partner at Baker & McKenzie, joins us to discuss infrastructure in Queensland. Ken, with the recent state election lost over the privatisation debate, any new infrastructure projects in Queensland are likely to face some difficulties with significant government debt. How will the new government fund important infrastructure projects?
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. It's a really interesting time to be talking about the funding of government infrastructure projects, because clearly there's a challenge on two levels really. One is as you say, the extent of government debt and the constraint on the ability to borrow, but also obviously some of the political opposition to PPPs in the traditional sense. I think there is room to question whether the debt constraint is quite what it should be, or what it's perceived to be. Because governments, at a time of negative real interest rates, really can still borrow. But PPPs have never been just about cash. They're about innovation, expertise, what the private sector can bring to government projects, as well as the cash and the balance sheet impact for the government. So I think it's time for governments to think very carefully about what projects should they fund and use their balance sheet to fund, and what projects can they leave to the private sector and bring the private sector innovation expertise? Because clearly we're going to need a mix of both to get all the projects done in an effective timeframe.
Ken, you did hit on an issue before that we have seen some issues with PPP models in the past. Are there any, innovative approaches to PPPs that we've been seeing work in Australia and abroad that the Queensland government could look to?
Well, I think you've got to keep the focus on innovation and away from the cash issues. And I think if you think about innovation, then you think about what sorts of projects is the private sector better able to deliver, and frankly that the government doesn't need to be in the business of delivering. Operating assets is a good example. Why does the government necessarily have to operate a port? So the so-called operational PPP is something we might see more of. A long-term contract to allow the private sector to operate an asset rather than simply sell the asset, with the political sort of ramifications that is seen to have. And that means you can focus on the areas where the private sector can deliver something the government either can't necessarily deliver or doesn't need to deliver. And in an era of so many disruptive technologies, all sectors have innovation in them and should be looking for innovation, and in a lot of ways the private sector is probably a better place to do that than the public sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just finally, what are some of the opportunities that you see for the private sector?
Well, I think it's a mix of the two things. You'll hear it said around town all the time that there's a lot of cash available that would be more than happy to invest in government projects, and I think we need to tap into that. It's in the interest that for all of us that our super funds are investing in these long-term projects. But secondly, I think, and probably in some ways more importantly, is the innovation. Where's the expertise the private sector can bring, and focus on that. And there is a mindset the government needs to change a little bit too. If they're going to really benefit from private sector expertise, they need to let go. They need to set the parameters, the KPIs, if you like, of what it is they want delivered, but let the private sector get on and deliver it.
Some wise words, Ken. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.